Success is calling, don't ignore. Take control, unlock the door. Dreams ain't distant, they're right in sight. Sam will help you get it right. He's got the roadmap, got the plan, helping you take a stand. Financial peace, a future bright. San Nicolaca shows the light. Call 385-323-2493. Change your life, now's the time. Build your wealth, make it strong. Leave a legacy that lasts long. He's got the keys, no need to wait. Financial freedom. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Fuel Your Legacy show. And today we have another incredible guest. When I saw his information come across my email as far as somebody I could interview, I was excited. I wanted to learn more about what he was doing. His name is Mark Weithorn, and he's out of Miami Beach, Florida, just really enjoying the sunshine over there. He says it's a humidity you got to worry about. But one of the things that he really has specialized in and created over a long period of time is a tech company. Now, tech, 25 years ago, it was not really brand new, but kind of to the scene. The dot-com bubble happens. It's like, okay, who's the next up and coming? And most of the big companies that we think of in the world today are actually tech companies. Like some of the largest companies in the world are tech companies. So clearly some people have been able to stay in the game long enough, but some of those companies really got their start, Facebook, Instagram, these companies in like 2008. They haven't even been around for over 20 years yet, which is crazy that they're at the top of the market. But what Mark has been able to do is create a tech company that's been around for over 21 years and been able to evolve and innovate and stay relevant for that long. And so that's a big, big deal. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to pick his brain a little bit here and share that information with you, because one of the things that this podcast focuses on is asking the right questions. He has another element of his business that's a little AI focused, which we're going to get into. And if you don't know how to ask the right questions on AI, you got nothing going for you. Because AI is as good as it is. It's a large language learning model, and it's there to regurgitate whatever it finds to best answer your question. So although it's a powerful tool, if you don't know how to ask it the right information, it will be useless to you. So that being said, for an introduction for Mark, I'm excited about this. Mark, go ahead and tell us like your origin story. How did you get here, where you are today in the world, geographically? What was your childhood like? I'd like you to start really as young as possible, that you can remember your earliest memories, your childhood memories, your family, your sibling upbringing, because I think that that's where a lot of our core identities get built. And then we spend the rest of our lives asking questions to reaffirm our early identities. So I want to know, what was Mark's early identities that led him to where he is today?
Wow. Thank you, Sam. Thanks for having me. Going back, the Wayback Machine. So I'm a product of the 1960s, and I remember television back then. You used to have the Dick Van Dyke Show, the Beverly Hillbillies, great shows like that, really good writing. And I used to watch those religiously. And then my favorite thing to read was Mad Magazine. It was just the humor that I could appreciate. It was that dry humor that has lasted with me for a lifetime. And then I was 10 years old, and there was a book lying around the house, and I picked it up and I couldn't put it down. It was called How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Great book.
Great book. It's the number 2 best read book in the nation. The number 1 best read book?
The Bible.
The Bible.
Yeah. Hey, if you're second to the Bible, that's not a bad moniker.
Yeah, you're pretty high up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it taught me how to talk to people and how to, how to make friends instead of just like business. What do you want? What can I do? Things like that. So what all of this has taught me was a love for marketing. I went to Fashion Institute of Technology. I was student president there, and I graduated with a degree in marketing and commercial photography. And I started with commercial photography, which having a camera took me all around the world. We used to do these things called slideshows. And there were corporate slideshows, and I would go to Texas and Panama and California, every place you could imagine, because with camera we'll travel. But what happened is technology changed, and I had to change with it. For example, the video became more in vogue. But back then, the video cameras weighed about 30, 40 pounds. And being a lanky, skinny guy, I could not hold a 30, 40-pound camera on my shoulder. So all the big guys who should have been playing football, they became the videographers. So realizing that, I changed modes and I went into advertising. At first, I opened an ad agency. At first, I was doing retail advertising, where I was producing and writing radio commercials, jingles. And I once wrote a rap commercial, radio commercial for suntan lotion. It was just another hot day, and the sun was giving out lots of rays. It was UVAB, and it was great. I mean, the owner of the company, he was like dancing on his desk. It was fabulous. We were doing television commercials and newspaper. Remember newspaper? I had one client who was in the cellular telephone distribution business. That's when cellular telephones were mounted in your car. And he lived and died by the newspaper ad in the Business Monday section of the Miami Herald. So we had to get in the best ad. And I went out and got the first program. This is on Microsoft 1.0 of desktop publishing. And I had a laser printer that was 300 DPI, which was the worst it was the worst printer. But it worked. We got the ads in at the last possible minute, and he was able to succeed. Then I teamed up with two brothers who were creative, and we got into product development. So we would work with manufacturers who needed to get their products to market. We got called in one day, for example, by a manufacturer of wrist braces and knee braces, and he was shut out of the main big pharmacies like Walgreens and CVS because, Futuro and all those big companies had that locked in. So he wanted to go after the independents. So we took a regular, ordinary product, and we came up with a packaging that said hospital grade. And it was blue and gray, and it had the little emblem with the sword and the snake. And it looked hospital grade, and he sold a gazillion of these things to all these independents. So once again, evolving, that business was changing, and we opened up a digital printing company where we were doing short-run printing. And one of our clients were realtors who needed to do mailings. And I was at a trade show one day in Atlanta, and this young guy walks by and he goes, I've got this website product for realtors. Maybe you want to help me market it. And being a marketing person, he was a tech person. We took his product for 6 months, tore it apart, put it back together. And that's where our website company started, DPI Showcase Websites. And I've been going gangbusters on this for 21 years.
So let's go back a little bit. I appreciate that. So how big was your family? Like, what was your mom and dad? What did they do for work?
Sure. My parents were Holocaust survivors. I'm a second generation. They met in a displaced person camp in Vienna after the war, got married after 2 weeks, ended up in a DP camp in Italy where they had 2 children. And then they came over to the United States and then had 3 more children. So I'm the youngest of 5. My father was a cab driver. My mother was a seamstress. And, we had a family. There was always food on the table. There was, we did all right. And the beautiful thing is, my parents are no longer with us, but, all the siblings, we all talk to each other. And we have lots of kids and grandkids and nephews and nieces. And
what's that age gap between the oldest and the youngest sibling for you?
10 years. 10 years and 4 months to be exact. My brother Victor was born on the 13th, and I was born on the 13th. So yeah.
That's not a lot at all, especially for 5 kids and moving.
Sure.
That's like one every 2 years.
The old saying was, my father looked at my mother and she was pregnant. So
Yeah. And so going into the next stage, because you're the youngest, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what did you see growing up? Your older siblings, what were they doing? As far as, were they entrepreneurial? Were they just, hey, go get a job, work hard? Like, what was their mentality around life and business?
So we were all different. We all knew that you had to go to college. Today, the mindset is a lot different. A lot of young people are trying to question the value of having a bachelor's degree and the expense and time that goes with it. But we all knew we had to go to college, and we did. I was the first one to go away to college. My brother and one of my sisters went to Long Island University's Brooklyn campus. One of my sisters went to Brooklyn College. And then I went away to New Paltz State University for a couple of years. And my mother said, no, stay at home, go to Brooklyn College. And I was like, no, Mom, I'm going. I'm out of here. And it was a great experience. My dorm room had a view of about 10 miles away. There was a mountaintop with this little monument on top. And we did hiking, and it was just an amazing experience. The winters were fabulous, hiking in the snow. I had my dog. He was a part Cocker Spaniel, and he used to follow the trails for us in the middle of the snow. It was just a fun time.
That's awesome. I love that. So what did they go into as far as business? Like, have you done business with your siblings, or was that not really a thing? All the different industries were too different to find some commonality in working with your siblings.
Yeah, we didn't go into business together. My brother ended up in tennis. He was managing tennis facilities on Miami Beach, and he did that for quite a number of years. That was his forte. My eldest sister, she was an entrepreneur. She was a makeup artist. She was the one that was in New York City. And she was the one that convinced me to transfer from New Paltz State to go to FIT in New York to study marketing and commercial photography, because she knew that was my passion. My other 2 sisters ended up being teachers, and they enjoyed what they did until they retired.
Awesome. So now you're the one that's still crushing it, still going, not giving up anytime soon.
I'm very scared of the word retired. Really makes me nervous. I love what I do. I work with clients. I work with web designers. I work with programmers. And it's very creative, very ingenious. Right now, we're working on some new AI tools. We just launched our first AI tool, and we're working on some more AI tools because that's the future. And it's exciting. I love what I do. Some people retire because they've had enough. No, I'm not there. I don't know when I'll be there. But
you may never be there. You may never be done.
There.
What was if you were to think of what was the number one lesson now looking back, what did you learn, the number one lesson, or maybe the top 3 if you can't pick one, just some things that you learned from your dad that you wanted to pass down to your children? Like, what was those legacy identities or legacy habits, mindsets, behaviors that you're like, you know what, I see that in my dad, I want to become that, and I want to pass it on to my children?
So my dad was a hard worker, but it was all about family. That was it. It was all about family. And that's what my wife and I did when we raised our 2 boys. We always participated. I always made the time. My boys played in high school, they played water polo. And I made sure that I showed up at the games. There was only maybe 3 or 4 parents there. I always made sure I was one of them. And then, they appreciated that. Their teammates appreciated that. I still see some of their old, teammates around the neighborhood, and, they know me, and they love that. So it was about family. I had a conversation with each of my boys when they were in high school. This was separately. I sat them down and I said, let's plan your life. And they, what? I said, yeah, you want a house, right? You want to get married. You want to have kids. You want to have cars. What's all this going to cost? And then what can you do for a living to afford you all these things? And we went through all that. And they did the math, and my eldest is now a robotic surgeon working in the Bronx. He lives just bought a house in New Jersey. And my younger son is a tax attorney. He has his LLM from NYU, New York University, and he's working for a private equity firm, working on deals. So they understood what was involved, what you had to do in order to afford yourself a good lifestyle.
And did you have daughters as well, or just sons?
Just sons.
Not just sons. Awesome. I love that. So same question, but for your mom. What was the driving lessons that you learned that you wanted to pass down from your mom?
So my mom knew how to run a household. For many years, she was a homemaker. And I remember sitting with her, watching her cook. And, she would, especially on Fridays, she would cook stuff for the weekend. And I loved to cook based on what she was doing. We have recipes written down from what she's doing. Now, when she cooked, it was like, there was nothing written down. It was a glass of this, a spoonful of that. So my sisters and I, we had to kind of decipher what she did, and then we actually put it on paper. But she really knew how to work a household, and she was very ingenious. I remember back then we had shag carpets. I don't know who came up with those things, but and one of my sisters had a candle going and some wax dripped down into the shag carpet. And she was trying to figure out how to clean that up. And she got a towel and put it down, and then she put an iron on top of it. And it got the wax to melt, and it went into the towel, and she was able to clean it up. And I was like, wow, that's ingenious. What that really taught me was how to solve problems. And when you're an entrepreneur, when you're in business, there's always problems, and you have to learn how to solve them.
Absolutely. I love this thing, because these are the things that make us who we are. They're the things that program us before we know we're being programmed. 8 years old, they say, is kind of the end of when a child's being programmed. And then after that, their identities are set for the most part. It doesn't mean you can't change your identities, but generally that's your identities are set. And then the most of your life is spent reaffirming what you already believe about yourself by the time you're 8 years old. And it's so fascinating to see how different people were raised and what things they gained and learned from their parents. Because the idea of working hard and starting with the end in mind that you took your sons through, hey, what do you want out of life? What are you hoping to get? What are you hoping to achieve? While your dreams are still intact, before we've told you can't have dreams, what do you want? And rather than saying, no, you can't have that because we don't do that in our house, what if you said, okay, interesting. How could you do that? What are some ways that you think you could do that? What would you need to do? What would you need to come up with? What are some industries you might need to be in? Now, there's nothing wrong with being a lower income earner if your dreams align with that. But if you want a different life, then you need to go do the thing that's going to get you the different life. And there's no better or worse. In my mind, I don't think there should be any shame one way or the other. I do think that there's value in asking the question, though. So that's a good question for everybody. And you can start today. Just because you didn't do it in high school, maybe you're 40, 50, 60 years old. If you're 60 years old, you've likely got another 20, 30 years left in life. What do you want out of the rest of your life? It's not too late to go find that, but that's a great question. Let's plan your life. Let's plan the rest of your life. How often do you plan the rest of your life? I'm curious, Mark.
Every day.
Every day? How long do you spend planning the rest of your life?
24/7. You can't rest on your laurels. For example, I had a production meeting with one of my team leaders today, because we are creating more AI products. And this is something that's evolving every day. And we are constantly reading and looking what some of our competitors are doing, what some of the big companies are doing, what's working and what's not working. And we are making decisions based on that. So every day I come up with different things that we should try and different ways of marketing to get our word out there. Now, we've tried a lot of things through the years. Some of the things have failed and it's just died on the vine, but that's okay. You can't complain about that. You can't, have sour grapes about those things. And then there's other things that we do that are really successful. For example, we do this simple thing. We take a blog article and we get those articles from different, industry sources. And we place it on all the websites in our system. And then we automatically post that blog article from that website to that realtor's Facebook and LinkedIn pages. Automatically.
You're posting it from the agent's website to the social media profiles
of that agent. And then we take the previous week's blog articles and we repurpose it into a weekly e-newsletter email that go out to all the realtors' clients that's in their built-in CRM, client management system. So it was a simple concept which basically just blew up. People love it. It's absolutely amazing.
What's the value of posting it across everybody's platforms, or not just the social platforms, but like putting it in all the different websites?
So people don't have time to blog. It's really hard to do. So what we're doing is we're giving them content. It helps a little bit with the search engines. It's not original content, but it does help a little bit because it puts hard-coded content on their website with keywords. And then it also posts for them on social media, which people don't have time to do. If you're a busy realtor, you're out showing properties, you're dealing with clients, you're running your business, and we're taking care of one simple task that you don't have to think about anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's important to understand, like, what's the value of this? Sometimes it can get overwhelming. A lot of the stuff that's overwhelming at this stage, I think, is a lack of education or lack of information, because AI really can duplicate a lot of stuff. There is, as you mentioned, what's the discrepancy right now in the AI world? Because AI can detect it. AI can detect what's original and what's not. So maybe for the first month and a half of AI, you could maybe scam the AI and say, oh yeah, we're going to repurpose this and it looks like Sam posted. But at this point, that's not happening. The algorithms know if it's AI generated. They know the markers. The AI's putting in, for lack of a better word, watermarking inside of their text and inside of their code so that they know that. So what's the discrepancy or the value of original posts versus non-original posting?
So it's always better to have original posting, but that's very hard to do. You have to write. For a while, I was doing that for our company. I was writing articles and having them published. And I said, wow, let me have ChatGPT write the article. And I put in some prompts and things like that. And I said, give me an 800-word article on this. And it was really bad. I mean, really, really bad. What it would do is it would give you about 200 words of something that was okay, and then it would repeat the same thing over and over again for like 3 or 4 times, using different words. So I had to write it myself. As far as AI, there's a broader picture going on with AI. There's 3 types of AI. There's generative AI, like if I wanted a picture of you riding a horse, okay? I would just type in, give me a picture of Sam Knickerbocker riding a horse, and boom, there you be, okay? And so that's generative AI. Or if I say, write me, this and this and this. There's automation, which is a lot of what we do, which learns and then automates. And then there's machine learning, where that's like, the Terminator, okay? Where it's all self-thinking and it learns and all that stuff. I don't think we're there with that yet. So there are some products coming out with AI which are good. There are simple products with the generative AI. For example, let's say you need a studio photo of yourself and you don't have time to go hire a photographer. You upload 3 different snapshots of yourself and it will create a studio photo as if you had gone to a photographer. That's cool, and they charge, like $30 for a picture or something like that. But then there's other tools in AI right now which are horrible or are bad business. For example, they're trying to improve chatbots. Like when you go to a service and it says chat with someone, and in the past you used to chat with a real person. Now you're chatting with some AI tool that tries to keep you from talking to a real person. Those are very frustrating. I had an issue with one
question about that really quick before we move on. When you say they try and keep you from talking to a real person, in your estimation, again, and maybe you've created these, but it doesn't sound like you have because you don't like them, but are they trying to keep you from is the goal to keep you from talking to somebody, or is the goal to push themselves to the limit of answering every possible thing before they pass you off? And I think that they are different goals. Like, hey, I don't want them to talk to a human, so I'm going to try and resolve their concern enough so that they shut up and stop asking, as in the company who's organizing it isn't actually trying to get to a point of service. They're just trying to make their client feel like they were served, but not actually serve them. Versus, hey, I want this AI to do everything that it can before I actually pay a human to do it. But I still want to make sure that my client is served to the top, to the best of their ability. So there's like eliminating wasteful things that is duplicative questions. And then there's, hey, I just don't want to spend money on it, so I'm not going to. What would you say it is mostly?
It's mostly trying to stop from hiring people to service your clients.
Okay, so you think it is more of a money grab. They just say, hey, if I can pay an AI to sort of answer these questions, and I save, across 10 employees, I was paying $30,000 a year. Now I made $300,000 to my EBITDA, and I can go sell my company for a multiple of that because now there's no wages being paid there, and AI is doing it, even though the AI service is crap.
Absolutely. Now, there are some things that these AI chatbots are good for. For example, if there's a simple task and you want to know how to do it, it can give you a PDF of a file that'll give you instructions how to do it. Like how to set up my device, things like that, how to connect this or that. That's fine. Okay. How to reset my modem for my cable. Those are all simple tasks. Those are fine. But then when you actually need to talk to a person, they are very resistant in having you talk to a person. And that's where it gets frustrating. Like I was saying, I had one vendor, I had to talk to a person, I had an issue. And basically, it took me 20 minutes before that bot got me to a live person. And then it took that person 3 minutes to fix what I needed. So what's happening is you're frustrating consumers.
Sure.
The worst consumers are the ones that are the quiet ones, because those are the ones that leave and you don't know that they leave. And these bots have the risk of having those quiet people leave and go elsewhere. Now, I've been reading a lot of articles lately about AI and the direction, taking a lot of courses and stuff because, I need to keep up on all these things.
Sure.
And back in the when the web first came out, all these companies came out like diapers.com or dogfood.com. And a lot of these companies, they failed. We had the dot bomb, as they called it, when the stock market crashed. So the internet didn't go away, because it was a sound foundation for a good business model. But some of these products or some of these tools that weren't real products, they went away. And I think what you're going to have now, I don't know when it's going to happen. If I did, I'd be playing the stock market right now.
Sure.
But I think we're going to have a correction there as well, where you have some AI companies that are overvalued and over leveraged. and basically those will disappear. But there are others that will stick around and will further the industry.
Question about that. And this is coming from just a cynical place of perspective, but it happens in a lot of industries. And if you look at the history of big business, and you can call it capitalism, Ayn Rand, I think in Atlas Shrugged talks about this probably, at more length than it needs to be talked about, but it's something that people don't comprehend. And so they think, okay, well, these companies obviously failed out. They weren't needed, whatever. But I think that there's also an underbelly push that new regulation comes out, and the bigger companies that want to survive and have the capital, they got past a certain threshold, they now create regulation and things that make those things obsolete. Do you think that it's going to be a regulatory shift that causes certain AI companies to implode or become obsolete and go away? Or do you think it's going to be just a market shift that is completely natural?
I think it's a market shift. If you look at regulation, they're still trying to figure out how to regulate social media. Now that ship has sailed. I mean, that genie was let out of the lamp, okay? And they can't figure out how to put it back in. Sam Altman from OpenAI, he went to Washington a few years ago and said, you need to regulate this before we go too far. And they still haven't done anything because they can't figure out how to regulate. There are other issues as well. There are copyright issues. So there were a lot of lawsuits, like Getty Images sued one of the AI companies because they had scanned all their photos. The New York Times had a lawsuit because, once again, they scanned all their articles and stuff. And they're going, wait a minute, that's private information, that's copyright information. You just can't use it. So we're still sorting that out. Now what's happening is there are business agreements going on between a lot of these companies and AI companies and publishers that are basically allowing them to use their data. So, but getting back to your question, I think it's market driven. It's what the consumer wants. Okay? If the consumer is willing to pay for something, then it will survive. If the consumer will not pay for it, forget about it. It's just, just not happening. And that's where it needs to shake out. Those things take time to shake out because what happens is you get a tech company, let's say they get, venture capital money, and they raise $5 million. And they develop their product for $2 million. Now they have $3 million for marketing and to keep it running. And now all of a sudden they're trying, and the $5 million runs out, but they still haven't shown any profit. Eventually they disappear. Someone may buy them for a penny on the dollar, their software. So it gets back to the consumer. What are consumers willing to pay for?
I think that's although I think that is a standard to base things off of from a survival perspective, I wonder if that's actually the healthiest thing for our society, though, because there's a lot of stuff that the consumer will pay for either because they are gaslit into buying something, they're lied to about buying something, they are educated into buying something that they need that they don't really need. I mean, there's a lot of things around that just because somebody pays for it doesn't mean it's a good for society. And so that's where I wonder what the future of AI is from that perspective of how do we, this is where the regulation conversation comes in. On the one hand, you want free speech. I've had this conversation with my kids, and I don't know how real this is and what they're going to do to handle this. I shouldn't say I've had this conversation with my kids. We've started to have the conversation because they watch YouTube, they watch this stuff, and we have them watch. Not that we have them, but we've allowed them to watch certain shows where there's humans in the shows, and then they're doing studio effects, rudimentary studio effects, to the point that our kids understand. Okay, Dana Dinosaur, or whatever her name is, isn't actually with these dinosaurs, right? But they're like, wait, how does that work? So they're starting to see, okay, why can't I be magical? Why can't I do this? And so we're starting to have this conversation. Well, not everything you see on a screen is real. But where this conversation leads for me is from an image perspective, the generative AI, the videos that we see, Trump posts video, like everybody's posting, in my opinion, humorous videos, but it's comedy, and I can tell it's comedy. Well, there's some videos that are being posted that you can't tell whether it's real or not. It's one thing if it's like grossly low fidelity, right? So you know that they're making a mockery of something. But when the higher fidelity AI comes in, what is going to happen with cyberbullying? What's going to happen with even pornography and that realm of creating your face on something that you don't want? My positioning is, I don't know that there's any way to stop it from happening. I think there's always going to be a bad actor, and as long as there's a technology that's capable of it, it will probably happen. That's kind of my opinion about it. I don't think, just like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong there. It's like the nuclear bomb, right? If it's capable, someday those things are going to be used, I think, for better or worse. And so how do you educate the next generation to protect against that? And if we can't protect it physically and stop it from happening, how do we protect the minds of the next generation so that they aren't affected by it when it does happen?
Sure. So it boils down to family is what it really boils down to. How old are your kids?
My oldest is 8. My youngest is 2 weeks old. It's just barely 2.5 weeks old.
Oh, man, you got a long haul there.
Yeah, I know. It's all good though. We just, and this is our 4th. Maybe we're done. My wife thinks we're done. We'll see. But I love my kids. I'm so grateful she chose to have another one, because I love having kids. I think they're beautiful things.
They are great. But it boils down to family. We all think that government is going to solve our issues. And the truth is, government is limited on what they can and cannot do. We live in a beautiful country, First Amendment, free speech. That means that I can say something and you can say the opposite, and we are protected to say what we want to say. Bottom line, and we live in this country, and we uphold those laws because we live in this country. If you don't want to live by those laws, you go move to Russia or something like that. So it gets back to the family, where you have to talk to your kids. You have to explain to them, don't believe everything you see. Some of it is fake. You have to look at multiple sources. You have to fact check to make sure that it's for real. And my kids, I tell them about a video I saw. They go, "Oh, that's fake, Dad." And I'm like, "What?" And yeah, they know. They know. So it really boils down to that.
It's a weird thing because I've gone through courses and we've had conversations in our community and in our church. Like, how do you defend against this, or how do you manage this? And it's this line, because like if you go and teach your child how to discern between fake and real, you're essentially teaching them 2 things. One, you're teaching them the extent of what you know in a lot of cases, which means you're exposing your own idiocy in some cases when it comes to technology. You're exposing your age. You're exposing, okay, you actually don't know how things work, Dad, because you're teaching me something that I learned when I was 2 years old, and that's just not how it works anymore. And you're like, wait a second, what? So then they teach you, and you're like, oh, this is scary that my 8-year-old is teaching me about technology rather than the other way around. So that's one thing. You're exposing your own lack of education. And then the other thing is, to the extent that they didn't know something, now you're teaching them how to do it in a hope that they don't do it, which is kind of a weird thing. So I agree with you that you can't regulate you can't regulate morality. It's kind of a weird thing, but like they try and teach ethics courses. In my industry, we have to do ethics training all the time, but you can't regulate morality. And so that was the other thing I want to talk about. I think there's really 2 places in society historically that populations learned morality. They learned, like, what are we going to determine as right and wrong? How are we going to decide what is ethics, a good thing for society and a bad thing for society? And I think in general, our societies at least for a few years, they had went away from any type of religion as an ethics standard, right? And part of that's, different religions being exposed for their own abuse of ethics, which, is a fair and honest conversation. But from your upbringing, I'm assuming you were raised in Judaism, even maybe that's too much of an assumption, but I assume since your parents were Holocaust survivors,
Yes.
What principles did you take from Judaism into your life and into the way that you operate, the way that you see the world, and the way that you've run business?
Sure. So, wow, we're going to go back 3,000 years.
Hey, that's good. That's where it all starts, right?
So if you look at the Old Testament, for example, what it was, let's fast forward past all the, he begat this and she begat that, whatever,
Uh-huh.
we'll get past all the people and the things that they did. But if you go into the second half, it's all a series of laws and rules. Thou shalt not commit murder. Well, isn't that like, yeah, duh? And well, no, that was revolutionary. Basically they were human sacrifices and things like that. So what we have is a set of rules and a set of laws that are written down for people to live in a society. The reason it was important was because you had, pharaohs, Big Daddy, who, they were perceived as God, and they were, they made the rules. Today they woke up on the right side of the bed and they had this rule. Tomorrow they changed the rule. So now what we had was a set of rules, and then we set up judges and courts in order to enforce the rules. And then we ended up with case law. There's centuries and centuries of case law written down, which shows, how people interpreted these rules. That worked its way into the British monarchy, and then it worked its way into our government, where we have set rules which are based on the Judeo-Christian beliefs that have evolved through the centuries. So those are the norms for society, and that's how I was raised. That's how my children were raised, and that's how everyone needs to raise their children. So then the question, let's say your child says, but this person did it. And then you go,
Kids never say that, though. They never say that.
I remember one situation where one of my kids did something, and I said, what was that determining factor that convinced you to go and do that? At what point, what did you think in your mind was okay with doing that? It was something minor. It wasn't, they didn't like go and rob a convenience store. And so what we have is now a level playing field of rules of how to live in a society and what's right and what's wrong.
And from that, like, what are some of the biggest ones that you've seen navigate you through business? Because I was doing this with my team just the other day, yesterday morning, actually. We're talking about what are core values, and how do you infiltrate those into a society, or into in our case, our team culture. It happens in real estate. You have a team and you want to have like, hey, this is what we stand for. This is what we do. And although there's like a smorgasbord of different rules or things to really be attuned to, and hey, this is my highest priority. I had to be honest with myself when I was younger. I say younger. Let's go back till I was 24, 10 years ago. I was just starting my family, and I thought, you know what? I want money right now. But I was told that, your family should be important and all these other things should be important. But then when I was really honest with where I was spending my time, how I was spending my money, where I was spending all that, my family was not the top of the list. And actually it was really liberating for me to be honest with myself and say, hey, family is actually not my highest priority right now. That doesn't mean it won't be in 5 years, but right now, starting a business and making money is my real highest priority. Eventually, family will be a priority. And I was really grateful for mentors that helped me be honest with myself about what my actual values were. So for me, right, I have these values that I think are important. I want to be a self-starter. I want to be known as somebody who is optimistic. I want to be known as somebody who has a yes and mentality. So I have this list of things that are my core values, and I'm sharing those. I'm curious, what are your core values that you say, you know what, these are the things that I think are the highest importance? Family, it seems like, is one of them. But like, if we're going to list like the top 5 things that these are guiding throughout all of my business, personal, relationship, all my interactions, these are kind of the guiding core values that you live by. What are some of those?
So we have this thing called the Holiness Code, which is a set of rules to go by. One of them is you should have fair weights and measures. For example, back in the day, you had markets and someone wanted to buy a pound of beans and they put it on a scale, and you should have a proper scale that measured out as a pound. It shouldn't be where you give someone 14 ounces instead of 16 ounces and you're cheating them. So that really goes beyond just a scale and beans. What it basically means is when you're in business, you have to be honest and you have to be truthful. Sometimes you have to say to your clients, no, I can't do that. Or sometimes they say to you, I want a refund, and you have to say, sure, no problem, here you go. Because the most valuable thing that you have in business is your name, your reputation. These days, it's really easy for someone to go on to leave a review on the internet about your business, and typically it's the people that are unhappy that are first to do that.
Or AI, right? AI is doing the reviews now. Phone farms.
And you want to make sure that you treat everyone right, and that your reputation is 100% solid. And that's what you have to go by. I teach this to realtors all the time. I've been teaching marketing courses to realtors for about 27 years now. Mostly, I've done it around the country, but mostly at the Miami Association of Realtors. One of my most favorite courses is Surviving the First 6 Months as a Realtor. And I get the newbies. I get those people that are just out of school and, they're coming into the business and they're wide-eyed and they're hungry and they're anxious and they don't know what they're doing. And one of the questions I ask them, this is a 3-hour course. One of the questions I ask them is, at the end of the day, what do you own? As a realtor, what do you own? You don't own the properties that you're selling. Okay, you don't own the brokerage unless you're a broker. If you're a realtor, you're working under a broker as an independent contractor. So what do you own? And what you own is you own your reputation and then your client base. That's it. So if you're not fair, if you don't do fair weights and measures, if you don't treat people properly, karma will hit you in the butt, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you're like, why don't people talk to me?
Because they don't trust you. Yeah, that's an issue for sure. So like let's stay on that topic for a little bit. Let's say you're sitting down with somebody who is transitioning from from it being an employee. They've got all excited. They're optimistic still about real estate. They haven't been kicked in the teeth yet. It's going to happen to everybody. Everybody's getting kicked in the teeth at some point. So how do you help somebody transition from employees to real estate agents, thriving real estate agents?
So there's different reasons why someone becomes a real estate agent. First of all, it's very easy to get into the business. And the cost is minimal. You take a course, which can cost you like $700-800, and then you take a test with the state, and then you once you pass that, you can join with a brokerage, and then you sign up with a real estate board, and then you get to sell some business cards. So let's say for $2,000, shazam, you are now a realtor. Which, if you think about it, if you wanted to open a shoe store, that can cost you $250,000 to $500,000. So the entry level is very easy. The challenge, so there's several different types of people that enter the business. First, you have young people who are either they finished college or they didn't finish college, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and they decided, I'm going to become a realtor because someone's put it in their head. Then you have people who are part-timers. They have a spouse who has a full-time job and they want something part-time so they can earn themselves an extra $30,000, $40,000 a year. So it pays for, the kids' braces or for summer camp or things like that. And then you have other people who were in corporate America and have left for various reasons. They could have been downsized, or they could have gotten tired with it, or they were just, pigeonholed and they knew they weren't going anywhere. So the transition there is from going from being an employee, where you show up every day and your boss tells you what to do. Okay, here are your tasks, go do them, to being an entrepreneur. Now you own your own business. Now you have to wake up every day and you have to say to yourself, how am I going to make myself some money today? What do I need to do to go get new clients? What do I need to do to service my clients? Because your broker's not helping you. The people in your office, the other realtors, they view you as competition. They want you to fail. And you have to learn how to be self-driven. One of the stupidest things I tell people is, be ready for work at 9 a.m. You're not clocking into a job, but be ready for work. Don't find yourself sitting around at 11 o'clock in the morning in your pajamas and your bunny slippers, because now the day is gone. If someone says, hey, there's this luncheon going on for this new development, let's go. Oh, no, I can't leave the house. You can't, day's gone. So you have to be self-driven. One of the things I asked...
Do you think that, I'm curious about that, do you feel like in your experience, you've been doing this for 21 years, the tech side, but you've been working with a lot of people, you've had a long career. How much of being self-driven is innate, caught, or taught?
Yeah. I think there are personality types where it will never hit. You cannot be an entrepreneur. It's just not in your DNA, and that is it. There are other people where it is 100% of their DNA. I'm not working for anyone else. I am doing my own thing, and that's it. They're 100%. They are entrepreneurial. And then you have people in the middle who can be taught. So what I do is I teach them how-to things. Okay, here are some tasks I want you to do every day, which is going to bring in business. And if they can motivate themselves and if they can do those tasks, they'll be successful. It's as simple as that. So you have to be self-motivated, but you can learn how to be entrepreneurial.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting question I ask myself, because I'm in the business of leadership development and building teams of individuals in the financial services sector. And it's fascinating to see different people come in at different levels. And I know for myself, I think I was always a go-getter, but when I started in this industry, there would have been no evidence in a court of law that was the truth. So nobody would have convicted Sam of being like, oh, he's a go-getter or self-starter. And it was something that I had to ultimately have a paradigm shift and like, hey, it's nobody else's job to pay my family's light bill, mortgage, food. Like, it was nobody else's job. And once that clicked, it's like, okay, then with a paradigm shift, I was able to step into that thing. So there's a few different, I call it the incentive quadrant when I'm coaching, but there's like external motivation, there's internal motivation, then there's external inspiration and internal inspiration. And external motivation is fear of consequence. Like, I'm going to get punished, I'm going to get kicked out, I'm going to get evicted, I'm going to get sent to jail, whatever. Like, that's like an external motivation. I'm doing something because I'm scared of a consequence. Not because I want to, but more because I'm absolutely fearful of consequence. And then there's external inspiration that's like, I'm FOMO, scared of missing out. And if I don't do this, then I'm not going to get to go on the trip. I'm not going to get to go play basketball with my friends. I'm not going to be able to go to the store. I'm not going to be able to eat the food I want, right? So we have external inspiration. And we have internal motivation. I said that wrong. So that's internal motivation. And then there's external inspiration, where maybe you get yourself in an environment and you're inspired to do something because you actually want to. You want the thing that's happening. You're not running from and you're not doing it because you're scared of missing out, but because you actually want something. Then there's internal inspiration. I like to think that internal inspiration is the highest value of connecting somebody with their values, getting in alignment with what they actually want out of life. And if nothing else, maybe they don't ever become an entrepreneur, but at least they become very happy and content and aligned with whatever life they do choose. And I believe that it's progression. I believe that you can progress through it. So that's why I asked you that question about somebody's ability to change. Because I want to believe, like my optimistic self wants to believe that anybody, if they attached to the right outcome, they could become an entrepreneur.
So what I do once again in my class for the new realtors is I go over the math. Like I sat my boys down and I said, okay, here's what it's going to cost you to live this type of a lifestyle. So I say to them, okay, let's say you want to earn $100,000 a year. All right, fine. So what you need to do is you need to do one rental a week, which will give you about $1,200 in commission. And then you sell one house every quarter, which will give you about another $15,000, $20,000 in commission. So when you add all that up, you're earning $100,000 a year. And then I show them how to do it. All right, here's how you're going to get to where you need to be to do this. And I give them step-by-step instructions. You start with the rentals because it's fast money, it's quick. It'll start bringing in cash flow so you can start paying your bills. And then all of a sudden renters become buyers. And next thing you know, you turn around, it's 2 years later, and you've got a nice little business going on here where you're earning $100,000, $150,000 a year, and you're in business for yourself. So it always comes down to the math. And you're right, you need to pay your mortgage every month. You need to pay the car bills every month. You need to, go shopping and eat food. So that's the real motivation behind it.
Okay, I want to ask a question about that because I've rented a few houses in my wife and I, we rented a few different places. We've always found our rentals just like we saw a sign and we went and said, hey, is this place for rent type of thing? Or we were looking on Facebook Marketplace or looking on, let's see, where else do we look for it? Yeah, I mean, I think I found them all on Facebook Marketplace. But we've always gone directly to the leasing office. So I'm curious about that. Like from a real estate, let's say a residential real estate agent, how do they get paid on a rental? Like if I was owning my own house and I was renting it out, which I do from time to time, right? I run a Airbnb and I rent out my house. Nobody's paying a rental fee. So I'm just curious, like, where's the rental fee getting paid to a real estate agent if they get somebody to rent for a year?
Sure. So if you hire a realtor to find a tenant for your house, let's say, okay, here we have a lot of condos and things like that. So you agree upon we can't say commission anymore because of the whole NAR lawsuit thing. We have to say compensation. But you come up with a compensation. I'm just going to say commission. It's easier. And
I won't report you.
That's all right. It's a guideline. It's not a law. Okay.
Okay.
So let's say you say, okay, fine. I'm going as the landlord. I'm going to pay you, Mr. Realtor, 1 month's rent in commission to rent out my apartment. Now, if I find the tenant myself, then basically I get the whole commission of 1 month's rent. So let's say the rent is $2,500. I get $2,500 that has to go through my broker. My broker takes a little piece and I get the difference. If another realtor comes along and finds the tenant, then you split it. So basically you're each getting a gross commission of $1,250. So what a realtor is able to do is a realtor is able to put this into the MLS through their local board. So basically it is a big dashboard of everything that's available for sale and for rent So other realtors can go on there and see what the availability is and what their client might be interested in. And then you contact the listing agent, and then you all work towards closing the deal. So that's how it works. As far as rental buildings, like you drive down the street and you see a building with a big sign on it. It's always 30-foot signs that say, rent now, call, and there's a big phone number. Some of them work with realtors, and what they typically give them is half a month's commission, which is the same thing. Not all buildings do that, but some do. And they do that because, the realtor's doing all the legwork in finding the client and pre-qualifying them and then bringing them in.
Sure.
So,
it would make sense. I just have never thought about it because I've only rented 2 places that were I've rented 2 places in the private, like, residential market, and then I've signed 3 commercial leases. And I guess it makes sense in the commercial leasing because very few people buy buildings. They just always are renting, subletting. So I guess it's always made more sense to me in the commercial space than it does in the residential. Maybe it just works the same. It's interesting. Go for it.
No, commercial's a totally different beast. There are commercial realtors, and they are feast or famine. But when they get they do a deal, they get paid like a lot of money. So, for example, if I rent your house for a year, I get paid on 1 year commission. Whereas if they rent, let's say, a store with a 5-year lease, they get paid 5 years worth of commission all at once. So yeah, commercial's a whole nother beast.
5 years worth of commission, but like 1 month's rent or whatever type of commission, or?
It varies. A lot of times it's 10%. Commercial is usually a higher commission rate.
The total contract value, not just the 1 year.
Right. Mind you, I must say this legally, commission rates are negotiable.
Sure. Sure. No, that's good. I didn't know that, because that's not, I guess when you buy a house, you're paying the closing costs, and that 6%, whether it's going to the buyer or seller or split or whatever, ultimately somebody's paying that. Either the buyer or the seller is paying that fee in that. But when they're doing commercial leasing, it doesn't seem like that fee is coming out of, at least not directly and disclosed the same way, coming out of the leaser's the leasee, I guess, in my case, when I'm leasing a commercial building. It's not like a line item, and you paid 3% commission to the agent, and nobody's passing a check to that agent to go find him a spot. It's just like, okay, find me a spot. And I've never known how they got paid. I know they got paid, right? Obviously, nobody's working for free. But when you're purchasing a piece of real estate, it's very clear that that's a disclosed process. When you're leasing commercial real estate, I don't know that that's ever been disclosed, nor do I care, right? I just want to know what's my monthly payment, and don't screw me over. Like that's what I care about when I'm commercially leasing. Also, when I'm renting, that's also what I care about. So I've never seen it disclosed what a residential leasing agent, for lack of a better word, would get compensated, or how they get compensated. I feel like that's an area that I network with a lot of real estate agents or realtors that are like fix and flip or buy and hold, all this stuff. But that element of real estate, I don't feel like I'm certain I've never discussed it with anybody, but I don't feel like it's ever been a topic of conversation. Like, you should start renting people because then you get $1,200 a month, and that's like the quick, easy money. I've never heard that said by anybody other than you.
Yeah,
as like a feature of a real estate agent license.
Yeah, as a buyer or as a tenant, you don't see that because that's happening on the other side of the transaction, where it's the seller or the landlord that's paying the realtors.
Why is that not? Again, not that I know that it even matters. Why do they force you to disclose it in the sale of a property when they don't force you to disclose it in the like a tenant leasing perspective?
I'm not sure. I couldn't answer that. It's just an industry standard, and I really don't think if you're a tenant, you really care about how much the realtor's getting paid as long as you're not paying it.
Well, like even as a purchaser, do you really care how much the real estate agent's getting paid?
No, you really don't.
It's just like I guess the only time it really matters is if the seller is the one paying the fee, because then that's cutting into their net profits of how much they sold their house for and how much they owe on their mortgage. If that was always, and I just think it should always be baked in, the closing costs, or at least the realtor's fee should always be baked into the buyer's thing. That's what I think. Just like, hey, it's just always going to be part of the buyer's.
Well, in New York City, it's different. When my younger son graduated from NYU, he needed an apartment, and we found this cute little bachelor pad in the East Greenwich Village in New York. And so we walked in there and we looked at it. We went, yeah, that's great. It was on the market for maybe an hour, okay? And that was it. We were sitting in a Starbucks. We were going to different places all day long, and this popped up, and he said, let's go. And we went over an hour. That was it. And there, the way it works is you have to put down first, last, and security, and then you have to pay the realtor's commission. So
the renter does.
The renter does. So in New York, it's different.
Interesting.
And that's because of the demand. The inventory stays on the market very short. So basically, that's how they structure it. So yeah, the realtor said to me, okay, no problem. Here's an app. Go there. And we went on the stoop, and I pulled out my Amex card, and I filled it out and put down the deposit, and that was it. The apartment was his. So there it's different, but in most cases, it's either the seller or it's the landlord that's compensating the realtors.
Interesting. Well, I almost feel like that's an easier negotiation. So in one hand, it may be easier to be a commercial real estate agent, but maybe it's the same. I don't know. I feel like dealing with business people and discussing fees, on the one hand, it's maybe more difficult because they're shrewd business owners. But on the other hand, you're not dealing with a bunch of uneducated populace that doesn't know that this is a natural part of the equation. Like getting somebody to understand, like, oh yeah, you have to pay money to have your house sold. The average person who doesn't get that, that's a more emotional sale than dealing with a bunch of people who are, now you're just negotiating over what the percentage is rather than negotiating whether there should be a percentage or not. Like that. Those are two different conversations. And so I think I'd rather be on the negotiating over percentage conversation rather than.
Now, realize this is all negotiable. So, for example,
Sure.
A friend of mine, I have a realtor's license. I really don't practice because I'm busy with my website company. But I was bored one summer, and my wife said, oh, go get your real estate license. And I passed the test. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. So a friend of mine wanted to sell his condo, and I said, great. And I put it in the MLS, and then I found the buyer, which happened to be someone else I knew. And so I was getting both sides of the deal. I was getting 6%. And then one evening, about a week and a half before the thing was supposed to close, the seller calls me up and he goes, Mark, you got both sides of the deal. You're getting 6%. Why don't you just take 5% instead? And I'm talking to him, and finally was no way out of it. I said, fine, I'll take 5%. So coincidentally, and you can't believe in coincidences, about 15 minutes later, the buyer calls me up.
Exactly.
Mark, you're getting both sides of the deal. Why don't you give me 1% off? So, within an hour, I went from 6% to 4%, and I was like, you know what? It's fine.
That's still more than 3 if you only represented one half of it.
Exactly. And
that's a 33% benefit.
And it's better than 0 if you didn't find anything. So, yeah, it's all negotiable.
That's so funny. So let's get into what is your website right now? I don't remember the exact name of it. What's the name of your website? So if somebody wanted to go and see all of your services and then look at the different real estate websites, because I think that one thing that I learned early on in business is a website can be more than a business card. Most people's websites are a glorified business card. But even if that's all it ever is, you've got to have a website. I just think like in today's day and age, how somebody survives in business without some form of public Google search representation, I don't know. That's rough. That's a rough gig if you have no representation. So I'm curious, what's the name of your website? And then I'll ask the next question after you answer that.
Sure. So our website is dpishowcase.com, dpishowcase.com. And basically what we do is we do websites for real estate agents and brokers across the United States and Canada.
So what does DPI stand for?
So it's funny because I had mentioned earlier that we transitioned from doing collateral materials at the ad agency to opening a digital printing company. So it was called Digital Printers International. Being a marketing person, I was really good at getting the DPI out there so people knew the DPI. And then the person that we teamed up with had showcase websites. So he went in a different direction. So we ended up going in different directions, and I took over the whole thing. And then eventually I sold the printing company because printing is just a technology that was kind of dying. You still need to print, but not as much as you used to. So we had to keep the DPI because of the brand awareness.
Do you feel like you get crossover? Because like the first thing I thought of when I heard DPI, and maybe just because I'm in a different part of marketing or graphic design, is like how many dots per inch or diodes per inch. So my mind went something completely different when I first saw your stuff, and that's why I was curious. Like, do you get crossover, and how are you using your website to harvest maybe those misdirected Google searches, but still harvest that and turn that into a client?
Right. The reason we came up with Digital Printers International was because of DPI, dots per inch, which is a printing term. So yeah, but it's like Kentucky Fried Chicken is now KFC because they're more than just fried chicken. So that's why we kept the DPI, and also because of at the time it was about a decade's worth of marketing to create brand awareness.
Sure. Yeah, SEO, everything. I can see why you wouldn't want to get rid of it.
Yeah, and it's worked. Everyone knows DPI because I'm good at marketing. So yeah, that makes it easy. That's good. Yeah, because I was like, man, how does he manage the? I was training an associate, and they were she's studying for a test, and the two words principal and principal, AL or LE, and she asked me this question about how this entity is a principal, and she thought she was talking about the principal of the account rather than the principal in the negotiation. I was like, well, like I'd have to see that question. You can't just like ask me verbally because I need to see what word I'm reading. She's like, what do you mean? They're the same thing. I'm like, no, these are very different, like completely different worlds. Very important. And you got to understand the conversation, but like when you're asking questions like that, having a mismanagement of terms or words could really screw you over in the wrong thing. So I was thinking, well, on the one hand, it could screw you over, but if you have something that's often searched. So for instance, my brand, Fuel Your Legacy, is FYL. And I haven't really seen much of them now, but in the past, there was an FYL channel, Fuel for Your Leisure, FYL. And it was like a big craze. I don't know how popular it is now. I haven't seen a lot of them now, but went selling ATVs and like this whole movement for leisure activities and outdoor things. And so when I was creating my brand, I'm like, okay, this is going to be interesting. How do I separate these searches or make sure that people know they're going towards legacy when they find FYL rather than for your leisure? But then also, okay, how do I brand my website? So if somebody is looking for leisure, they're still going to find something of value for leisure on my website, right? So I'm targeting both terms. So I was just curious if you had done that or if you'd thought about that in your marketing. I didn't see anything on your website. That's why I was curious about it. So in the beginning, I had to do a lot of brand awareness, but fortunately, I don't have to do as much of that today.
Would you benefit from it though if you did like cross and try and pull in more of those Google searches? Or would you say, no, it's just too much to manage brand wise, it's not worth it?
You also have to manage your marketing dollars. Okay. You have set number of dollars that you can spend on marketing. And so
Sure.
you have to choose where you want to be and what you want to do.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. I mean, we do marketing on Google, on Facebook and LinkedIn and email marketing and plus networking and stuff. So, we're really all over the place. And you have to be consistent. You have to just manage your dollars correctly.
So on that note, I went on your website and I was looking at the different realtors. Again, these questions here that I'm asking, they are both for realtors. So that's the native industry that he's in. But I promise you, having been around the block in the business development space, this question, the answer to this question could be applied to anywhere. And that's why I'm asking the question, because I think it's a universal question, whether this is in parenting, whether it's in your own business, if you're for business marketing, anything you do, religion, this is a good question to ask yourself. But you have this product, this service that services many of the same types of people. And in this case, the same industry as all real estate. It's possible that you serve real estate agents all in the same demographical or geographical area, right? Multiple. So how do you help an agent distinctively separate themselves or look different on your websites from another? So it's not like, oh, DPI created all these websites and we know because they all look the same, right? How do you make sure that each website is unique so that person has some different differentiating factors visually on their marketing and their websites?
Sure. So we don't have set templates. I learned that a long time ago in the printing business. I said, let me come up with some business card templates. And I did that. I spent a few months and then I presented it to realtors and they all went, that's nice, but I want something different. So about 8 years ago, we had to redo our software from scratch because technology changed. Everything needed to be more versatile on smartphones. And we couldn't take the existing software we had and do that. So we spent about 9 months redoing the software from scratch, and then about another 6 months transferring all our clients from the old system into the new system. And what we did was we created a system where we were able to customize a website and produce it in just a couple of hours, where we're able to make each and every website look different. Mostly the home page is what we're talking about. You also add some pages on there like About Me and other things like that, but mostly the home page. And we're able to do that so not everyone looks the same. And then we're also able to add certain features that we do for minimal cost on our end, which really make the realtors, they may be a new person, but now they look like $1 million seller. So it's basically talking to the clients. And that's what we do before we pick up a mouse and start creating the website. We find out who they are, what they do, where they work, and then having the technology to be able to customize our websites to what they need.
I think, I love asking these questions because I know they'll eventually get to the question that I was asking. Not that the whole answer wasn't good, but the last thing he said is really important. They talk to their clients and they find out who they are, what they need. He talked about this principle. This is the same principle, and this is why I'm tying this in. It's the same principle he started with his sons. Hey, before he said, hey, go to school for this, go to school for this. You got to go to, no, like, hey, what do you want to become? What do you want your life to be? Who are you? What are your skills? What are your talents? What are your interests? Let's build something off of that. And that's why I say, like, this is not just a realtor principle. This is any type of leadership principle, whether you're leading in your church congregation, whether you're leading in your family, whether you're just in your friend group and you want to help your friends elevate themselves. Lead them, right? You can lead anyone, anywhere, anytime. You don't have to be a designated leader. You can step into leadership. And leadership, in my experience, the best leaders I've ever encountered are the ones who ask the best questions and let me kind of share what I'm getting at. So what are some of the questions that you ask your people? Maybe it's in an intake form, maybe it's on a one-on-one conversation, but what are a few of the questions that you found, I need to know this from my client, partially in like the who are you, what's your backstory. I need to know this about my client so that I can customize this website to reflect them, their personality, their interests, like who they're trying to serve. What are a few questions that you find are the best questions that directly help you customize it to the individual?
Sure. So the first thing we ask them is, what neighborhoods do they work in? Because everyone has, it's called a farm area, and that's the areas that you work in. So we want to know, like here in Miami Beach, we have a lot of these big condos on the ocean and stuff. Do they work the condos, or are they inland where they're working single family homes, or are they working with renters? I had one woman call me today. She works basically in these 3 mobile home parks. And that's her niche, and that's it. So basically, we're going to tailor her website to for those mobile home parks. So that's the first thing. And then
question there. When you say, because again, I know you're like, oh, this is broad scopes. I want to give the meat here though. So when we're tailoring a website to a mobile home park versus a condo versus these things, what elements of the website are you going to change?
It's simple. So it's mostly the homepage. What you're showing is what type of photos or videos are you showing. So for example, if I'm dealing with a high-end realtor who sells $1 million condos on the ocean, we're showing video clips of the ocean, of beautiful condos and things like that. And we're making it look really luxurious.
Do you have color schemes that naturally would attune themselves to an affluent profile versus we'll say less than affluent? Although, like, I was talking to somebody yesterday, and she's like, "Oh, we serve all these people on the Navajo reservation that they do financial advising for them, and they've got millions of dollars, but they live in shanty little trailers." So, it's not, wealth is not indicative of where you live, just to be clear, and I understand that. But if you're talking a trailer home park, is there a different color demographic, visual demographic than a high-end real estate type situation?
Sure. So we can, on the fly, we can change the colors of the website, the homepage. And if you're dealing with a luxury person, you're either dealing with like blacks and golds, or some people like whites, real clean. If you're dealing with someone who works in single family houses, then you're dealing with maybe some blues or some earth tone colors. It depends on what neighborhoods they work in. So we have the ability to change all that. Then you have people who send us their logo. They say, this is my logo, these are my color schemes, and we're able to, quickly change the layout to match all that.
How often do you, because again, some people are coming in having done a lot of stuff themselves, never hired a professional, and then they hire you to build their website, and what they come in with really is not the best when there's a match, right? Maybe they have a gold level logo, but they're trying to sell to a townhome or trailer park. And how often do you say, you know what you have already, I appreciate you sending it, congratulations on doing the work, but frankly, if you want my professional opinion, these don't align. You really need to change your colors, change your branding, change everything to align with the market you're actually trying to attach. You wonder why you're not selling? It's because you're not aligned. How often do you have to have that conversation with somebody?
It happens once in a while, but not often. And as a marketing person who's taught realtors for many years, I'm able to guide the realtors, whether they have that experience or whether they have that logo or they don't. I guide them into how they should have a proper online presence, and then what they need to do in order to go and drum up business. So it really doesn't happen that much. The only ones who really have specific colors and logos and stuff are the high-end realtors who have the dollars to go and hire the artists to create those things for them.
Okay. So pictures, and again, I know we're talking about real estate, guys, but if you're in any type of service, you got to understand how to read people and understand that who you're talking to, how you talk to them matters. So I did door-to-door sales for 5 years. And when I was in certain neighborhoods, I would dress differently. I would speak differently. My language was different. The word choices that I would use were different. The speed at which I moved through a neighborhood would change. There was a lot of things that shifted if I was in a super affluent 8, 10, 15,000 square foot houses versus if I'm in a neighborhood that, there's cars that were burnt on the street and you're in yards aren't taken care of. It's a mess. And you got to sell. You can make just as much money or more money in both, right? There's no like a one size fits all. If you have a service, it can serve everybody. The question is, are you aware of how you're reaching that client? So the next question about that is the copy. How much differentiation is the wording that you're using, the types of vocabulary words you're using for an affluent versus a middle class versus a lower end client?
So we don't put a lot of copy on the homepage because people don't read that. They'll read some headlines. What they basically want to be able to do is quickly search for real estate. So there's usually some search bar or something like that, which allows people to enter a neighborhood and then the property type and then bedrooms and bathrooms and price and start seeing listings as quickly as possible. So you don't want to really put in all these words because you don't need to educate people on what a realtor does. It's pretty straightforward. We all know what a realtor does.
True. I guess I'm curious in the listing, because there's the front end sticker that somebody's going to originally go in and interact with, but then there's also the how a house is described and that aspect. Do you see that there's variation there, or are you always leveling up who you're talking to?
So the way our system works and the way all these systems works is we have links to the local boards, to their MLS, to their data of all the listings. So the listings come in with the pictures and the description that were all uploaded to the MLS. Now, sorry, no worries.
Okay, go for it.
So one of the things that we're always trying to educate realtors to do is, number one, take good pictures. Because if someone goes on to any of the real estate portals and they look at a property and they see two similar properties, one with good pictures and the other one where someone took their iPhone out and they kind of with their hand shaking took a picture, you're going to naturally be drawn to the one with the good photos. The next thing is the description. You want to write 4, 5, 6 sentences that describes the property and gives some detail about it. And there are some realtors that are now using ChatGPT to help them write that copy. But it all starts with the pictures. And naturally, we can't edit those listings when they come in because it's just the way the system works.
Sure. With the pictures, again, because this is something I've experienced when I was looking for houses. It's this hard balance, and I don't know what the right balance is. So I'm curious what you've seen in the actual field, specifically on real estate. When there's nothing more frustrating to me than seeing pictures that have clearly been touched up by AI or what, this place these pictures have been touched up. There's no question. And then you get to the property and it's like, wow, this is a lot worse. The carpet's not near as good. There's dings. Somebody made these pictures look amazing, which awesome. I hope they got paid because they did magic. And then on the other hand, you don't want pictures that just make the place look bad. Because then people are just like, yeah, it's just a shithole. Why would I want to go to there and check it out? So what's a good balance between proper representation of a property versus you don't want it to look too bad or too good? How do you balance that as advising a new agent? Hey, if you're going to go take pictures, this is the level of editing you should do.
Well, let's take a step back for a minute. It's the picture of the realtor themselves.
Okay.
Some
Good.
realtors
I like
are
it.
using pictures that are 15, 20 years old.
Amen. I've seen that too. And it's
And
like,
then you
whoa,
see them and you go, whoa, is
your
that
hair used to
you?
be brown. Now it's white. What happened?
And you walk in with, with a walker and stuff, it's like, wait a minute, what's up there? Um, but yeah, they even have, now they're using AI software to stage houses. So let's say you have a house with no furniture in it. Some people say, well, it's better to sell it when there's furniture in it because people can visualize, what it'll look like.
Yeah, whole
So,
staging companies.
right. So they used to have staging companies that actually brought furniture into the house. And some people still do that, if it's a really expensive house. But now you can take pictures of an empty room and then you can place furniture into the room using this software. So you have to really you have to put some time into the photographs because a picture is worth 1,000 words, and then you have to be honest. Simple as that. I've seen some photos where stupid things like they take a picture in front of a house and this car is in the driveway. And all they had to do was say to the owner, do me a favor, I need to take a picture in front of the house. Can you move the cars out of the driveway? Or there's clutter all over the rooms. Do me a favor, I'll be over on Tuesday to take pictures. Can you clean?
Right.
So, it's simple things like that.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. This whole industry is always gets me going. Okay, so I've got a few more questions here that I really want to get to. So first question is, in your tech company, you've been in the tech company for a while. How did you manage to stay relevant over 21 years of the technological change in my lifetime has been crazy, and your lifetime even crazier. How did you manage to stay relevant and engaged on a platform and serving clients for 21 years through all those changes?
The trick is to always evolve with technology. You can't just say, okay, this is my product and that's it. And I'm always investing money into redoing our software, making sure that it uploads fast, making sure that the graphics and the visuals look good. We're now looking to change our property search to integrate more of an AI capacity or feature to it. So we're constantly adding new things. We have a client management system where we're in the middle of upgrading, and that should be launched probably by the end of the year. We're about 2 weeks away from finishing it. Then we got to go into testing because there's always bugs and stuff you have to get out of it.
Sure.
So we're constantly adding new features. We have a database of developments, new and existing developments, which are condo buildings or housing developments, communities with floor plans. And we've invested time and money to where we have probably 2,000 developments in our system. So those are the things that we do that have value to our clients, so they can then use it to go and service their clients.
Right. With the lead side of your business, because you do a few different things, right? You're building websites for people, doing marketing, maybe a little bit of branding, and then you have this Leads AI. What does that Leads AI do, and why would somebody, if they're a realtor listening to this, okay, that could be beneficial to me? How does your Leads AI benefit a real estate agent?
So what we did was, I go to these Google conferences every year in Las Vegas, 35,000 of my closest friends. And it's a great thing. And I learned what the trends are in the industry. Now, there's two sides to the real estate business. There's buyers and sellers. So if you go to some of these larger websites like Zillow or Realtor.com or Homes.com, basically, if you're advertising on there as a realtor, you're getting buyers. And buyers are very unreliable. There's a saying in the industry, they say, buyers are liars, but listings last. So what we did was we're able to take AI technology and figure out who is primed to sell their home. So now we're getting sellers leads, so realtors can get listings.
What are you, what metrics are you looking at to determine if they're primed to sell or not?
So what we're doing is we're looking at their online activity. We match that with zip codes. We put 5 zip codes into a realtor's system, CRM, And then we're able to find people who are online. So let's say you have someone who is owner occupied. That means they're living there and they've been owned the property for a long time, because we match this up with property tax roll data. And now all of a sudden they're online shopping for homes on some of the other portals. Now we've identified them and we see them as a potential seller. And then what we do is we get their, through property tax roll data, we get their name, phone number, email address, and property address. We put it into the realtor's CRM. We start emailing this potential seller with emails, branded onto the realtor. And then we give our client, the realtor, a hot sheet so they can call them and just introduce themselves to them. So what we're doing, it's totally different than these other portals, is we're looking after sellers, which is a lot more lucrative to realtors than chasing buyers.
Well, that's when I have worked with different real estate agents as a financial professional in like Arizona, Utah, and Idaho, because that's where a lot of my work happens. And they're like, man, I just don't know how to get clients. I'm hustling. I'm like, look, here's what I would do. And I didn't know you at all. This is the first time we've ever had a conversation. And an AI doing it sounds even better. But what I would do is say, okay, look at, and I don't even know if this data exists. I assume it does. I just don't know where. But like, out of all the homes that were sold in Utah, where did or in Idaho or in Arizona, where did the majority, like what states did the majority of people move from? That would be my first filter. Which states did they move from? Second, I would want to know which zip codes did they move from? Because now I would just go like straight white pages. If you can find it better, like, okay, now I'm going to this zip code and I'm going to find on where all these houses sold. And I want to find the people. I don't know if you can get this close of data. They used to have like the yellow pages, right? And you could look up people's addresses and stuff. That stuff doesn't exist anymore. Yellow pages were so much more data sharing than what we have now. Sometimes I miss the yellow pages days or white pages. But you could go and find out, like, okay, this house just sold. I want to go call all 12 of their neighbors and say, hey, I noticed that you live next to this person who just moved to Idaho. Have you ever thought about moving to Idaho? Have you ever thought about moving to Arizona? Do you need a job? What do you do for work? Maybe there's a job for here. If I sent you some job openings in this town, would you be open to considering it, right? You've got the market on AI, but you have to drive and build the sellers list. You have to build the sellers list because the buyers, half the time they're not qualified, or more than half the time, they think they're qualified, they're not qualified, they don't earn enough money. Interest rates, they're buying dependent on interest rates. But if you go take somebody from a high net worth sale in another state and you move them to a place where their money's worth more in a different state, you may get a cash buyer, you eliminate the loan officer process, and now you've got yourself a guaranteed sale. That just makes the most sense to me. If I was in real estate, I'm not in real estate, no desire to be in real estate, but if I was, I would be running some type of scheme like that. And so that's why I wanted to ask you about your leads. Like, what is that process? What data? Because I think those leads, for instance, for me, I'm selfishly thinking about this. Although I'm not in real estate, I benefit the services I provide to a client. Pretty much everybody who moves and buys a new house needs what I offer. Maybe not everybody, but 99% of Americans who are buying and selling real estate need a financial education. They don't have it. They never learned it. They just are going from one person to the next, one house to the next. And if they're moving, they likely change their jobs, which means their assets are up for transition. Like, there's all these things that benefit from knowing if somebody's going to move or not. So if I'm the guy who calls and says, hey, are you open to moving? I'd like to introduce you to a few local real estate agents that might be able to assist you. Well, who are you? I'm just the guy who knows somebody. That's it, right? I don't know. This is where my mind was going when I saw your sheet, and I was just curious what data points you're having, and how have you seen those data points? Maybe like, could you put into other verticals with your same AI that's doing it?
Absolutely. If you go to my website, there's two additional pages for the Leads AI, and one is for mortgage brokers and the other is for insurance agents. So
Okay.
we're basically using the same data, because if someone is moving, they're going to need a mortgage.
Right.
If someone is moving, chances are they may have to redo their homeowner's policy. So yeah, we're taking the same data and we're opening up new markets for that.
Awesome. So you are repositioning it. See, I think that's great. I think that when you find something that works and you can reposition it or repurpose it, you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can just repurpose it. So that was one question, or I guess a lot of questions, but I wanted to talk about that. Second is you've been in this, not just this industry, but marketing in general for a long time. At least 21 years. How have you've been able to survive for 21 years in the tech, not just survive, but thrive. What are some of the harbingers of change that you have seen? Okay, I saw this the first time. I saw this the second time. I saw this the third time. We used to have brick phones that were in cars. Now we have brick phones that fit in our pocket, sort of. Now we have flip phones. Now we have, and you see these changes happen over time in different industries. What are some of the harbingers of change that you've been able to see? Okay, change is coming. Now I need to get on top of it and be on the front wave of the change rather than on the back wave of the change.
So I'm notorious for copying what some of the bigger companies are doing, because yeah, you have to stay up with the trends. So I look at some of the big companies like Zillow and things like that, and I say, okay, they're doing this. I read a lot of industry things, and I go, okay, this seems to be something that's a trend, and I need to do that. Fortunately, with my team of web designers and programmers, we can spin on a dime and start creating some of these things, these tools that stay up on technology. Like right now, we're starting to add AI. The challenge with AI is it hasn't formed yet. It's still molten lava. And there's a lot of things that are out there that are just, we make a business decision that, no, that's not going to stick. I'll give you an example. About 3 years ago, everyone was into Web3. Web3, blockchain, mm-hmm. That's it. It's going to take over. Web2 is going to disappear, and that's it. And then we kind of analyzed it, and we said we're gonna take a wait and see on that. And we turned out to be right, because Web3 never really took off. So we really research the industry and see what trends are happening and what consumers want, and then we start developing products around it. Never stops.
This might be too hard of a question to answer, and I don't even know how to ask it, so I'm going to do my best. But if we have like from beginning of trend to end of trend, let's say that's 100%, beginning to end, and 1 is the beginning and 100 is the end. At what number in that trend cycle do you say, okay, we're actually moving into this, we're going to start developing into the trend? Because when you develop, you're now, you talked about marketing dollars a few times. You're now diverting resources from what has been working into something that might work, right? You're now diverting it into development, and maybe there's always a certain amount that is always in development. But how far into that, as a gauge, 1 to 100, the complete cycle of the trend, how far in do you say, okay, this is something that I think I want to go develop into?
There's no set number. Is that what we really look at to see is if it makes sense. So what I'm dealing with is I'm dealing with a populace that's not very technical savvy. Realtors are salespeople. They're not tech people. They don't want to learn how to work programs. They just want to be able to answer their phone, check emails, and then go sell properties. So when we create a tool, the first thing we say is this automated? So this way the realtor doesn't have to worry about learning a new CRM and learning a new technology. We're doing everything for them. For example, we automatically blog for them and automatically post on social media and automatically send out weekly newsletters. We automatically send regular new listing emails to clients. We automatically send birthday emails. We automatically send holiday emails. So the thing that we ask ourselves is this appropriate for our non-tech clients? And can we automate it? And then we say, okay, now, does this make sense? So for example, we're going to start working probably after we release our CRM. We're going to start working on redoing our search product to incorporate more AI technology into that, because it's something that's becoming more mainstream. Consumers are now used to going to ChatGPT instead of going to Google. There's a whole series of articles and debates as to whether ChatGPT is going to replace Google. And there's different thoughts between the two.
If it makes it free and unlimited searches, maybe.
Well, Google is free and unlimited.
That's what I'm saying. So Google still has an edge because their AI chat is built in and it's free and unlimited. OpenAI, they charge if you have too many searches in one day. So it's like they're still doing the. I don't know if it's because they aren't selling people's information on the back end. I actually still don't understand why they charge if you want to use it, other than it's just their servers haven't caught up with how much demand there is, so they have to curtail and keep speeds up somehow. That's the only thing I can think of is why they're charging for it, because they're getting all of your data. Like every time you search something, they're learning from you. So I don't understand that, other than they can. So why not? It's still shiny. But once it becomes not shiny, then they'll stop charging, I think.
I'm not familiar with their business model. I'm not sure if they're profitable. I know they get a lot of people investing in them. And this is where eventually everything will shake out to where, if companies that are not profitable, eventually you have to, things come home to.
Well, that's the thing. Like, what's Google's profit? What's the word? Like, what's Google's business model, right? Advertising, ads, paying for space at the top of a page. Like, they have these things built into their system. I don't think chat has that yet, where chat's like being paid to recommend other, that might destroy the integrity of the system. If now it's just whoever paid to have their thing show up in the search is what's being searched. Where on Google, I think people were oblivious to that for a long time, but now we're all awake to it, that Google searches are 100% paid. Not 100%. That's an exaggeration. They're largely paid for as far as what's showing up on that front page. And definitely on YouTube, they have all that ad buy, and then they're selling the data to other places as well. So like, is chat not selling data? I find that hard to believe. But maybe they're just keeping it all in-house, and so they're not profiting on the sale of data.
I can't answer to the business model, but it's to be determined. We will have to wait and see. I read an article in the New York Times. It was the opinion of several economists who are presently in San Francisco at some tech conference that basically said we're sitting on a bubble, especially with a lot of this tech. So we'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I, we'll meet again in like 6 months or a year, and we'll see.
But it'll be interesting, because I think that's like understanding the harbingers of change is really important. And it's one of those things that you get two choices, right? You can learn through the school of hard knocks, or you can learn through the wisdom of other people on how to recognize what are some things that help you recognize, okay, these are market wins, right? We were able to sail across the ocean because somebody realized, okay, there's some like currents in the ocean. So where are the currents? How do you recognize if you're in a current, out of a current? What are the wind streams? Do they change at night? Like these happen all the time. Okay. How do hurricanes happen? Well, the pressure this all was discovered. I don't think it was created, although I think maybe now that's a whole nother topic. But I think that it was discovered how this works. And so I'm wondering, what have you discovered over your career that are some trade winds, for lack of a better word, or currents that you could pass on to the next generation, people coming up, to look for, hey, if you start to see these types of things, maybe wait, maybe take action.
So you have to look if a company is profitable, okay? You get some VC money and you build your product and things like that, and eventually you have to start making money. People don't invest in a company just to say, oh, I invested in this company. They want a return on their dollars. So you really have to look and see whether consumers are willing to pay for what they have. I go to these tech conferences where they have this contest where they have 3 judges on the stage, and then 5 different tech companies come up one at a time and they pitch their product. It's a pitch battle. And I scratch my head and, 4 out of 5 of them, I go, who invested in that? That is the dumbest idea. And then sure enough, you never hear from them again. So it really comes down to whether or not the company is viable. I mean, it may sound like a good idea, but you have an owner, a founder who's a really good salesperson who sells investors on, this is really great. I saw this, with this one tech company, and he was good. He sold a few of the real estate boards on his product, and now all of a sudden, everyone discovered, wait a minute, this is really hard to use. We're not going to use it because we just we don't know how to use it. And it's kind of dying on the vine.
Fascinating. Well, I appreciate so much you coming on, sharing your wisdom. This is exciting for me. I love all the content and the knowledge that you've shared, both from a father perspective, a leadership perspective, industry-wide, and how you get to grow and start. And you can become whoever you want to be, and you're not anywhere close to being done. You said you're just don't know if it's ever going to be done.
I love what I'm doing.
I love that so much. So if there's any final words, or where would people go if they wanted to interact with you? Where would be the best place to get in touch with you?
Sure. So my website is dpishowcase.com. dpishowcase.com. If you're a realtor or a broker or a mortgage broker or insurance agent, you can go to my website, see what we do. I also, on my website, there's classes. So there's a lot of my classes are taught on Zoom. So you can sit on any of the marketing classes or go to my YouTube channel, which is a link there to it, and basically see some of my training videos or recordings of my classes.
Awesome. And all of those links will be in the show notes. So if you just want to scroll up on your phone, you can click on those and go check those out. Check out his websites. I think it's cool to be able to see his different realtor websites and see how they're all unique, see how they're all different. Maybe you're just getting into the industry. Maybe you have been in the industry, have had a website, haven't updated it, and don't like your website anymore. So you're embarrassed to tell people about it. If that's you, don't be that person and get a new one. I say, make sure you are staying in touch with the times. He's had to do it. He's constantly learning. He's constantly investing in himself so that he can be a better provider for you. And you get to choose, right? You can pay for a service provider who is investing in themselves and staying cutting edge, or you can choose to go be the person who has to invest tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be cutting edge and try and fail all the things that don't work and sift out the ones that do. So thank you so much, Mark, and we will catch you guys next time on the Fuel Your Legacy Show.
Thank you for having me.
Call now, don't hesitate. 385-323-2493.